Hey everybody, welcome to Anatomical Gangster. I am your host, Sue Hitzman. For those of you guys who have been following along, I've got some great lineups for this month. I've been talking to a lot of great people and thinking about what it really means to find your way through fitness, through parenting, and the fire of reinvention. Well, in this episode, I sit down with the amazing Jim Warren, the author of The Finding Game, whose decades in fitness and health have shaped not only his clients, but his own family. His son is even a pro athlete. We talked about the power of self-awareness, the myths that hold people back, and what it takes to stay motivated when the spotlight fades and the real work begins. And if you've ever wondered how to balance mental grit with physical grace, or how coaching can become a form of healing, this podcast today is for you. And hey, if you've been listening to Anatomical Gangster, but you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. It's free, so it helps me grow. And it really means I can help bring new conversations like this one with people who challenge the status quo and share the kind of wisdom that doesn't show up in your newsfeed unless you ask for it here on the show. So what is your finding game? Let's find out and dive into this great conversation with Jim Warren. Hi, Jim.
Hey, Sue. How are
Hey,
you?
thanks. I'm really good. Thanks for coming on Anatomical Gangster to hang out with me.
Thank you.
Yeah, hey, I'm excited about your new book, The Finding Game.
How'd you get it so fast? That's great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
because I ordered it. I was taking a good look through this, and I'm in the middle of reading my friend Emily Splickle's Barefoot Strong, so I can only just read so many books at one time. But this
Yeah.
looks super excited.
No problem. I'll just keep this here while we're talking.
Yeah, man. And I love that there's these additional downloadable web forms. So I'm excited to kind of dive in and just kind of like ask a bunch of questions and get you, get you to share a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, you know a lot of my history. I mean, I've been in the training business. I hate to admit it, but uh I may have been the first personal trainer or pretty close. So yeah, I spent maybe 20 years training elite athletes, professional athletes, NFL guys and stuff. And you know, having been an athlete and then getting involved with athletes, um, I've always contended that the path to becoming an elite athlete is actually relatively simple. Um, it's not easy, but it's simple. Richard Boyd, a buddy of ours, he and I were having a discussion years ago about trainers and stuff. And I was like, well, what? It's so easy. He goes, no, it's not easy. It's simple. And so becoming an elite athlete is relatively simple because the game of it, the path of it is pretty much laid out. We just witnessed, last week in the draft. I don't know if you follow football at all, but Shadur Sanders, the quarterback from Colorado, was anticipated to be, maybe one of the top 10 guys. And he dropped down into the fifth round, 150 guys away. Well, he showed up at his pro day with his own gear on and he had called himself legendary and he went through this whole deal. And it's like, I've prepped, hundreds of guys for the NFL draft. And I always tell them, I'd say, listen, be squared away, get rid of all the nonsense, shake people's hand, look them in the eye, get paid, and then go to crazy town. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I
get,
do. Like if your ego kind of comes in front of you, that can be a really slippery slope. I was just
yeah,
listening to a professional skateboarder who was a pro, and he said, he was also an addict, and he said
oh,
the voice in his mind said that he was important and that the skating world needed him. And so when they
right.
finally like let him go because he was a liability, he realized, yeah, that is just not true. Just because you're
Right.
good doesn't mean you're not expendable. And especially in the pro field, there's a lot of people who want to be pro athletes. And if you're not willing to play
Yeah.
the game, be respectful, and be a team player, there's no I in team, right? You're
Yeah.
not going to get very far over time, I think.
Right. So finding that game. So, and a lot of the players I worked with is, guys like Murph, guys like that, when they went into the business world, I ended up getting involved in a number of startups, a number of businesses, and sometimes we would do well, sometimes we wouldn't do well. And I witnessed guys who were eminently successful, and most of them still are very successful, but they would get outside of their area of expertise and they would fail. And it was amazing to me that guys I knew who had helicopters and airplanes and giant houses and stuff, and all of a sudden they get involved in something and they'd fail.
Why do you think that happened?
Well, they would I got to be cautious because I don't think it's necessarily arrogance. I think it's confidence. They have a lot of confidence, and
I call that ego because
I think
ego
sometimes
gets
it's different. In other words, if if you if you got on the track of becoming successful as an athlete, then you checked all the boxes over a period of years. But most of those boxes were laid out for you,
got it.
right? So if you want to go to the Olympics, you got to get to the Olympic trials. And to get to the Olympic trials, you have to qualify in the nationals. And those numbers are there. If you run the 100 meters or you're pole vaulting or whatever it is, they're going to be like you jump so high in something that's certified so that you can get to this thing. So you just have to apply yourself and you check that box. Now all of a sudden you start a business. I was watching one of your podcasts, Pete Moore, I think his name was.
Yeah, Pete Moore, yeah,
Yeah, from Halo. So
from
he
Halo.
was talking about stuff, and it was just so fun to listen to him talk because it's like he has created a game. Like he understood the game of raising money for businesses.
Right.
Applied this video concept to it to simplify it and clarify it. And so he can take somebody who's got a good idea, he can basically plug them into that and push that forward. And the good news is you're probably going to get a thumb up or a thumb down because sometimes a thumb down is not a bad thing. It just tells you that you got to endeavor at something else. So as I went through these processes and saw some of these guys be very, very successful and then not successful, I started witnessing that sometimes we would get outside the game. I started a sports nutrition company with a bunch of professional athletes and very, very successful business guys, a couple billionaires. And I thought I had it figured out because I had worked as a consultant for building products, supplement products. So I was like, yeah, I got this. And so, yeah, you might call that arrogance, right? I was very confident, but there was a whole iceberg of stuff underneath quality products. So we won all kinds of awards. The products were amazing. And then we got into manufacturing, distribution, marketing, and all the minutia that I was not prepared for, and none of my guys were prepared for it. We hadn't done our homework. I
Yeah,
should
yeah, we're working on a business rather than in the business. That is like
Yeah,
probably, and I think you're right. Like there are, you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, that there's steps that athletes take to get to this place. You got to do these sort of steps. And it's kind of like a recipe that works for 90%, if not
right.
all athletes. But in business, there's, some people are like aim, or what do they say? Shoot, aim,
Ready,
and then
ready,
fire
fire,
kind
aim.
of,
Yeah, ready, fire,
like
aim.
you're going backwards. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds like what you
Well,
were doing.
and they think they can just power their way through it,
Yeah.
right? They can be like, I'm going to apply the type of energy it took me to get into the NFL or the type of energy it took me. But there's other things afoot. When I pivoted away from professional athletes, I guess about 10 years ago or something. I just got to a point where I, um, I wanted to matter a little bit more. And I was just making rich guys richer and I was taking Ferraris and making them a little faster. And I started working with young athletes. And my sons got a little bit older, and I went through that process with them through high school and college athletics. But over a 10-year period, 50% of every kid that I sent to a college transferred within a year
Tell me more about that. Why?
because there is a there is a game afoot with the coaches at the collegiate level. If you are an elite athlete, those guys, and I don't want to disparage coaches. I'm sure I'll get some emails from this, but they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you're that guy. You're that guy. Like you're amazing. Woo!" You know what I mean? And you got a jersey and there's your name on it, and they take you out in the stadium and they just blow smoke up your shorts like crazy.
And then you sit on the bench.
Well, it's not just that. You get there and you're just one of the fellas.
Yeah.
when I got recruited for college, I was an All-American running back, and I got recruited as a running back, and then I get down to school, and literally the first day they go, "No, you're not a running back anymore. You're a defensive back." And I was like, I
Really?
never played defensive back in even in high school. Like I had no clue. So I'm playing a division. I'm gonna play Division 1 corner, which is one of the most complicated. Like, what just happened? Well, so then I walk down and there's 20 dudes who look just like me.
Just like you,
And
yeah.
they all were all this and all that. And there's only going to be 3 of those guys on the field.
Yeah, that's gotta be a big wake-up call for
Oh,
an athlete where especially when you are such a great high school athlete. I remember when I was a high school athlete, I played 7 varsity sports, and at the last year as a senior, I remember the coach pulling me aside and saying, "Listen, there's like going to be this award given out for most all around, athlete,
yeah.
and we're going to give it to Rebecca." But listen, and I mean, like, I didn't even care. But he goes, and I want you to understand the reason why is because when we asked you, are you going to go to college and play a sport? You said no, and she wants to play sports,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
she needs to get a
Right.
scholarship. And while you are a better athlete and you've performed better, and um, you should be the MVP and you should be the all around season player. We're going to give it to her." And I just thought to myself, yeah, I mean, actually, at the time I didn't care, but I remember when I told my dad, and he just looked at me and he goes, "That's bullshit. And you should have said no." And you know what I mean? And I just was like, yeah, but I mean, I'm not, I didn't think that that was a thing, but these are big pinnacles for young athletes who are going out there who want to play college. And then again, I think it might be very disheartening when you, just like how you said, there's 15 other players that seem just like you at the exact same level, and you actually aren't a standout anymore.
Yeah.
And that maybe is where the shaping of tenacity and ego is needed, because instead of going, God, I'm like everybody else, you either got to step up and say, how do I master myself and get better, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
stay with the pack.
Well, and so in the book, say, ask the next question, right? And get in the habit of asking more questions. You go with your dad or, to visit colleges like I did, and we really didn't ask a lot of questions.
Jim, what's the first question they should ask?
Well, if it's, into college, it's like, okay, who else are you bringing in this class that I'm going to have to compete against?
What a great question to ask. I wouldn't even thought that
Yeah,
way.
it's
Who
like,
else is
and it's
coming?
not that I'm not like I don't mind competing, but it's like, okay, like what, in my case, it was like, are you going to guarantee that I'm going to play, the position that, you're talking about?
What's the second question?
Well, I would ask that question and I would be like, really? Okay, has he signed with you? And they're like, and they'll be like this, like, and I've given these questions now to kids who are going off to colleges. And
That's valuable. So
And so
valuable.
they ask that question, and coaches are not accustomed to that question, right? Normally, that question is going to come from maybe a dad or mom or whatever. But the kid's like, okay, how do you see this going for me? What do you see? Now, if you went like back in the day, it's changed a little bit, but back in the day, like I trained a lot of Florida State athletes when Florida State was really, really good. And they had a methodology that they told the kids basically what was going to happen. You're going to come in as a freshman, you're not going to play. Okay, we're going to redshirt you. You're going to be on the scout team and whatever. So don't even think about it unless you're Deion Sanders or somebody like that. So it's like you're going to come in and you're going to learn the game and we're going to do this. Okay. The second year, probably your first playing year, you're maybe going to be on special teams. And then the third year, you're going to start to platoon with the next guy. And your senior year, you'll be the starter and you go to the NFL.
Mm.
And they had sort of a factory. I mean, back then, Florida State was sending 6, 8, 10 guys to the NFL every year. Well, now that is Georgia or Alabama or some of these programs. And so I appreciate that. So a kid who's a freshman who's like a 5-star recruit is like, what do you mean? I want to play 1 year because now you can just dip out after a couple, what I mean? You can dip out earlier. And so it's like, no, that's not how we build our program here. And so you're going to play here a couple years. if you want to be at Alabama or if you want to be at Georgia, the teams, if you want to be this year, it was Ohio State, they won the national championship and they have the most guys drafted. It's like you got to understand there's a process there and you got to be okay with that. You're going to come in, you're going to be 30, 40, 50 pounds lighter than you're going to be when you eventually leave to go to the NFL, or you're going to not be as fast, or you're going to not understand the game as much. I would want that as an athlete. I'd be like, okay,
Well, and what I'm hearing you say, Jim, is, and this I think is a thing in fitness and the health and wellness industry also, not just in sports, but there's a skill of the athleticism of the like the personality, and then there's this business side, right? And to actually be a good business owner as well as to be a good player are two big divides. And I'm guessing in Finding the Game, because I see that your subtitle is The Revolutionary System Used by the World's Greatest Athletes, Executives, and Elite Businesses. And so that to
right,
me sounds like, and this is an easy book to read. This is like not a, it's not a novel. And I'm
not a
guessing it
biggie.
is just jam packed with a ton of stuff. So let's talk about that. So I'm an athlete and I want to get it pro. I now am realizing from what Jim has said to me is, yo, there's a process that the colleges themselves have. And while you might have an idea of how you believe it's going to happen, you got to
Right.
know the college's process that they do, and you
Right.
should talk to them and get that understanding before. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about like this book and how this crossover, how you're trying to cross over. Are you trying to cross athletes over to understand the business of being a pro athlete?
No, and that's a great question. It's an applicable system for anybody. So let me back up. I believe that dreams and goals are not the same. So
Correct.
when I was a young athlete, I have a birth defect. My feet didn't fit. It's kind of a long story, but they told my dad I would never run. Okay, so luckily my dad never told me. So it was like, you're fine. So I had a dream when I was about 12 years old that my parents had lost all their money. My dad had retired out of the Marine Corps as a fighter pilot and thought he was going to retire in his, 48 years old or whatever. And they bought a house up in New Hampshire that turned into a money pit and they lost everything. So I was like 12 years old. I see this guy and I'm like, I'm going to the NFL. I'm 12 years old. I'm going to go to the NFL. I'm going to take care of my parents. Okay. So there's a process there that started with a dream. So the dream, I believe the dream is fuel for your goals. So you stack up your goals and you say, okay, I have to do these things periodization wise. I have to be a really good player as a freshman. I have to do all these things. I have to get to the college level. Then I can go to get drafted, go to the NFL. So it laid out. And at all those junctures, I was stopped for one reason or another, from an injury or change of school or whatever. But underneath it all was the dream. And the dream kept me going forward when a lot of people around me quit. A lot of guys, better guys in my high school quit than I was. And I just didn't quit. I wasn't going to quit because I had a big, big dream. So what one of the initial processes in the book is, and it could be anything. So my last group, yeah, I did have two professional athletes involved, but I also had a guy who wanted to go in the military. He's a college graduate, great athlete. He was in a startup out in San Diego. He's very unhappy. He's like, man, I feel like I'm supposed to do something. I'm supposed to do something with my life. And I think I want to join the military. So I'm like, okay, what are you going to do? He goes, well, I don't know. And so we just took the process and we laid it out. It's 7 sections. And it's all supported by the downloadable content online. And he just started asking the questions. He went to the recruiter and asked the first group of questions. And the recruiter is just like the college coach, right? The guy's like, oh, yeah, you're perfect. College athlete, you're going to crush. And they're like, Marine Corps, he's looking at all of them. So then he's like, okay. So he gets that first round of questions answered. And then in the book, we tell him, like, okay, track down a bunch of people who've served in the military. So he tracks down a bunch of guys who served in the military. Like, take your time, pump the brakes. Because once you sign, like once you go to boot camp, it's like, see you later. Like my oldest boy, 6 months, 6 years. Peyton served in the Air Force for 4, but Zach was a special operations. He's a rescue swimmer jumping out of helicopters. It's a 6 year contract. So
Mhm.
it's like, okay, let's make sure we ask the right questions. So this kid had started asking questions, 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 and he was, he wanted to be a Navy SEAL because all the SEALs do all this stuff and they're cool and they're all, and Randy Hedrick and some of these guys, I mean, they're like tall and handsome and like, they're just these guys, right? Well, this kid ended up joining the Air Force and becoming a parajumper, which
Mhm.
is very, very different. It's a solo guy being dropped behind enemy lines to rescue people that have been down, their airplane is flamed out or whatever. So they're going to be by themselves, halo jump from 50,000 feet. And it's not 6 guys or 10 guys or 12, it's one dude.
Yeah.
And he was like,
Takes
that's
some
the
serious.
ultimate. Yeah, that's the ultimate challenge.
Mhm.
I want that. And he's gone through selection. He's doing it now. But it took him months to get to the right job, to figure out how to do it.
Well, and
And
yeah, that's a big thing. And Jim, I want you to talk a little bit because, I've known Jim for like I feel like 20 years now. I feel like I've known
yeah,
you for a long, long time.
yeah,
And you're a coach, you're a mentor, and you've really helped shape a lot of people. And in this particular story that you're sharing, what I think a lot of people do is they're putting the cart before the horse. They're in such a lightning speed moving forward,
right.
that what you seem to do is just say, just hold up a second. Let's get into second
Yeah,
gear to get out of fourth for just 5 minutes. And let's just slow down and take really create options, because if you're going so fast, you sometimes lose your choices because you only have one direction and you're not looking around to say, hey, is there a shorter path to get there? I didn't even think to look. So,
right.
how often do you think speed slows people down in the end because they actually aren't pausing for a second and have a good coach to point
Yeah,
it out
I
and
mean,
recognize?
if you've ever been driving and using, an app like Waze or something like that, and you're going like I do, I drive briskly. Um, if you're in the wrong lane and all of a sudden it's like in 200 feet, turn right, and you're going 80 miles an hour in the left lane, now you can either murder everyone by just locking the brakes up and cutting across traffic, or you might have to go down to the next exit, bang a
Those
U,
people
come
drive
back,
me
get
bananas
off
in
another.
Naples.
Yeah, and so it's like
Crazy
there
drivers.
is a time there is a time in especially in a business startup, which there is a time to throw gas on the fire. There is a time to do that. There is a time to put on the blinders and go. That time is coming. But, you know, if if it's a good idea today, then it's a good idea next month.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think sometimes this sense of urgency, which is
Right.
such a sales tactic, by the way, people, when
Sure.
you get an email and it says time is limited,
FOMO, fear of
it's because you
missing
have
out.
to go. There's
Oh
this
yeah.
there's this jingle I hear all the time about Zoom 10 9.99. Oh, for a
Yeah.
limited time. But
Yeah.
I hear it like every day
There's a
for
reason
3
they put those things on there where it's like going like this, right? There's like
yeah,
four
man.
left, three left, two left.
That's
You know?
it. And that's it. Is like, is the sense of urgency something that we create for ourselves? And in the end, what you're saying is oftentimes what seems like a sense of urgency is in fact fabricated in your mind. And if you really slow down, you'll realize that again, you can gain choices, gain better direction just by pausing a little bit and slowing down and actually making those systematic steps.
Abs Absolutely, and, if I use my business as an example, Pro 2, and I had all the guys. I had Barry Sanders was the MVP on our products. The gal that you see on the back here, Tina Vindham, she was like world champion female athlete, amazing, just an amazing you would absolutely love this woman, and she was on our female products. I had great backing, we had all the stuff. I probably should have either gone to work for someone in the nutrition business or queried a bunch of people or met with people and
To gain understanding and experience, you're saying.
yeah, or hired taken some of our money and hired a guy away from another company that was the shipping, distribution, understood because we had to learn it as we went. We had to learn about all the laws and legal stuff about just the labels and how to do all this stuff. So we were building the plane, we're building a spaceship on our way to Mars. And
Right.
I see that in businesses all the time. I have a very good friend started a company in Denver and I got hired in as a consultant for it. And I mean, it was like huge building, gorgeous, tons of money spent on it, great concept, mirroring a concept that was in up in Canada. It was fantastic. You love it. It's all concussion stuff. It was all fascial movement, and it was just amazing. And they open the door, and there's no, there's no customers, and it's like, okay, where did you anticipate getting all of your people? And they're like, well,
If we
there's not a
build
lot of
it, they will
concussion stuff.
come.
I'm like, bro, there's 150 concussion clinics, every chiropractor and every, whatever. There's all these people.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. So and we got it sorted out and it worked out. But it just took another person to come in and go, I looked around and I was like, why are you doing this? And they're like, not really sure. Why are you doing that? "Mm, not really sure. Well, the model that they were mirroring supposedly out of Canada, which was a wonderful guy up there, very, very successful. He also had played hockey, he played the NHL, they had tons of contacts. Like the day he opened it was like everybody's like, "Oh yeah, hey, sure. Let's go there and get our head fixed."
Mhm.
You're in Denver's 4 million people. There's a little bit of noise there. Probably no more there's probably more health clubs, more chiropractors, more doctors, more colleges, more so the noise is great. It's like when somebody says, "I'm gonna sell cell phones into India because there's a zillion people." Well, yeah, but all the other phone companies are there too. So, you just yeah, kind of pump
I
the
think
brakes.
I think
And I
what's kind
think,
of frightening, I think it's also frightening that there are concussion clinics, which is kind of frightening because that means that there's enough people who actually endure a concussion
oh man,
to need it. Isn't that so frightening? And I mean, it just makes my head hurt a little bit. And you're right, though. It's I think a lot of companies do that. Is they have a great idea. You have this drive. You want to be the next Peloton, the next Soul
yeah,
Cycle, next big thing, but you don't have all of the pieces in place. You don't have the trademarks. You don't have your legal down. You don't have your marketing. You don't have a social media rep. You don't even have a plan. So how are you going to get anywhere? And I think a lot of young people, I think at any age, are going to find some great information in your finding game. And I love that you've got the additional downloadable web forms. Tell me,
that's where it's all there. It's like basically building a business plan.
like a punch list business plan.
It's unbelievable. And it was so funny because when I put it together, and I'm an older guy, so I use paper, and people were like, "That's so stupid. Don't make an app." The psychology, the testing, the research out there when you write stuff down, it's totally different for your brain. Like the
Of
way that
course. I mean, I write, and yeah,
all the
everything's
time.
online now, but we're old school, Jim. I actually had a friend, I was at their house and I was writing in a notebook and her daughter came over and went, "What are you doing?" And I looked at her, I go,
Yeah,
"Taking notes." And she goes, "Is that a pen?" I said,
yeah.
Yes." She goes, "I'm anti pens." And I looked at her, I go, "What the hell does that even mean?"
So
She goes,
you're anti-success because,
you don't need to write."
well, I
Take
I look
anything.
at it this way, and I consider myself a fairly bright human being, couple college degrees and stuff, and I'm like, I get it, but I've been in the fitness industry a long time, and I've never seen more apps, and I've never seen more unfit people in our country.
That's a big thing, man. I hope everybody hears that. You can app yourself to death and spend anything that you want, but there's a real world connection that I think is lost in this generation that is causing an effect for long-term development and growth of really the mind in and of itself. And
Oh,
again,
and
you
not only
you're a
that, but
super
you
coach.
can go back and look at your stuff. I
Yeah.
I have the ability now to go back and I use this product. There's a reason I use it, but I make my own stuff. So I could take these out and put them right back in. And we use them, I use them for all my clients. And it's just easy because now I can scan it, I can send it to somebody, I can still do all the same things. But the research is so critical about writing things down, the way that our brain retains stuff. Like, for instance, with our athletes, we do about probably 40% of our drills going backwards. And people
Mhm.
are like, what is that all about? Well, when you move backwards, it packs into the back of your brain. When you go forwards, it's in the front of your brain, and that's temporary. That's very temporary. Information that we store here in the frontal lobes of our brain, it's very temporary stuff. You want to hold on to that stuff, and it's got to get to the back of your brain.
Yeah, the limbic system's got to be a part
Yeah.
of that.
And
Like
so
emotional
it's
resilience.
I'm nerdy enough to understand how these things work. And so I'm like, if you write this down, then you can go, and you know what they always say about like sending an email to somebody, it's like, let it breathe a little bit when somebody says something to you and you spark up and you're like, "Dear Bob, you know,
You
die.
suck.
I hope you die in a plane crash."
That's what I
So
would say. Write it and just
let
say
it
it to
breathe.
yourself and let it breathe. And
Yeah.
you read it and see how those words come off to you. And now with AI, I just ask my loving Coco to help me recraft pissed off emails to people so that I sound less like a bitch. Really, I do. And I love it because he's so much more diplomatic than me. And he'll even say, you do sound a little bit angry at this. Let's see if we can reshape it, Sue. I'm like, thanks, Coco. Yeah, it's true. What did I ever do without AI? Which I actually am curious what you think about AI in the world of sports, in the world of business. How important is it to know how to use AI in 2025 and
I
beyond?
think you just hit on it. I think it's a wonderful tool, right? And I think in my career in fitness, I've seen certain things that I look at and I go, whether it was going from using an Olympic bar to using a hex bar, right? It's like if I can stand inside of it, my shoulders going to line up correctly. So I'm like, when I played sports, why didn't somebody have one of those? So that's a tool, that's an improved tool. Randy Hedrick coming out with TRX, it changed the industry, suspension training. Um, there's a few things like that that are tools. Fascial training. When I saw Tom give his talk at the meeting of the minds, it it changed everything. Like, we're sitting there and he put up the slide, and a lot of the people, Wecky, and there's a lot of, Peter Twist was there. Like, there's some bright cats in that room. No one wanted to put their hand up because none of us knew what it was. And it was a piece of fascia from here down to your heels.
Yeah, the superficial backline. Yeah.
Oh man. And we're like nobody wanted to look stupid, right? Because it's supposedly the 50 brightest people on the planet. Basically, we had people from all over the world at the meeting of the minds, and that changed everything. And so now, fascia is a part of our conversation, and the way that we look at things has changed. I look at AI that way. Richard spoke. I don't know if you saw him speaking on the stage last week. They were asking Richard Boyd. They were talking about how AI and how artificial intelligence is going to change things, especially in the personal training arena. And I'm like, personal trainers should be using those type of tools. But I have a problem after all these years in the business. When Sherry and I would walk through the mall, she'd be like, "You're looking at that person's posture, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yes.
She goes, "You
You
think you can
got
fix that? You think you can fix that person?" I'm like, "I know I can
We
fix
are
that." You know what I
so
mean?
weird, Jim. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, when people walking down the street, I'm like, that person just probably had a MCL tear or something.
yeah.
They're
Oh
like,
no.
how do you even know that?
And so I'm sure AI at some point will be able to do that,
Mhm,
possibly.
mhm.
But
It will.
for me to take that knowledge into the AI world and say, okay, I've got a client who's got this thing, we've got bad hip alignment, we've got kyphotic posture, whatever it might be, whatever their challenges are. Now I can ask for some help putting together a program. For me, that makes sense. I can put together programs, I can look at it. But I mean, I have a husband and wife in Florida that I'm training. They're both former collegiate athletes, they're both in their 50s. And physiologically, they could not be more different. They are completely different and they want to train together. It's like,
That can be tough. I mean, I love
oh,
working out with my boyfriend, but sometimes he wants to do bench press, and I'm like, "I don't really think I need to do bench press. I think I would be better off doing some shoulder stabilization and maybe some thoracic spine extension." And he's like, "Should I be doing that?" And I said, "Probably, but if you wanna lift weights
probably. Yeah,
and make your
probably.
pecs look more
Give up the
sexy."
bench press, bro. No one cares.
It is. I think we are in a technology-based world, and I know that in some ways you're right. Personal training is kind of getting consumed with AI because people can actually have a computer system help them with their training that is all based in AI that is not from a real person. But there is a touch point of coaching, of mentorship that I think is still needing a human touch. It needs a real person.
Well, look at it this way, Susan. Like, if you think about it, I got people in world class shape 30, 40 years ago. Okay. I'm not that guy anymore. I'm like, I don't know what I would be, 5.0, we call it. But I still got guys running 4.4, 4.3, 4.2 20 years ago. You know what I mean? I had a guy ran 4.18, the fastest guy in the country 20 years ago. Before AI, before TRX, before foam rolling, before, okay. The missing component is always accountability.
Mhm.
So Coco's not going to wake you up and go, Sue, get your butt to the gym. You know,
It would
it's
be nice if he did. I might
uh,
go more if somebody
it's a
woke me
nice
up
easy
and
like,
said, "Sweetie,
yeah,
you need to
a
lift your
nice
leg and get
artificial
on that
arm.
train."
Wake up, Sue. So the piece that we are going to continue to see here's one of the biggest problems. I don't want to get in the weeds. I don't know how we are time wise. Um, so we've shot ourselves in the foot a number of times in the fitness industry in order to be competitive. Do you know Bobby Capuccio? Do you
Of
know Bobby?
course.
Okay. So he made a great comment years ago. I can't remember where we were, but we were talking about something because he lives in the training space, but also in the motivational speaking space.
Mhm.
And he said, there's a really interesting difference. He goes, when I'm in the motivational speaking space, everybody loves everybody. Everybody, and you've seen it now with like Huberman and Diary of a CEO, all these guys. Everybody's pushing everybody's podcast, right? So Rogan's got, Huberman, and Huberman has Wes Hop, whatever. And he goes, in the fitness business, everybody's like, nah, that guy's stupid. I know way more than that dude. So there's a problem because from a credibility standpoint, everybody thinks everybody is smart in the motivational space. Tony Robbins, all these guys, they're all like, oh yeah, that guy's awesome. That guy's awesome. In our space, it's like, nah, that guy's a tool. That girl doesn't know what she's talking about. Pilates sucks. Oh no, you got to do this, right? So we hurt our own credibility because we don't all get together. That's number one. The other three pieces of it, I think, are we told people it's easy. It's not. It's not easy to look like Sue Hitzman. It's not easy.
Well, and it's a dirty little secret of fitness is that 80% of the people who enter fitness actually get injured, have pain, and they have body
Right.
dysmorphia. They actually are doing fitness. They get into fitness for the wrong reason. It's
Right.
actually a lack of worth and strength. And I mean, I even think to myself, when I was 12 and in that gym, played in hide and go seek with my friend, hiding behind a leg press, watching four guys doing massive bench pressing and watching them all cheer each other on. And this big dude came up over me and said, what do you think, those guys strong? And I said, they are the strongest men I've ever seen. He goes, wait till you see me do it. And when he got down there and he put two more of those 45-pound plates on, and I watched him do whatever, a one rep max, he came back over. He goes, you want to be strong like me? And I said, more than anything in the world. And it's not because I wanted to be physically strong. I finally wanted to be able to stand up to my father. I wanted to be
Oh,
strong so that I could do things for myself and that I could show him how strong I was. And so I was going in not for me, but so that someone else would love me. And I think to myself, I almost said fucked up. I'm gonna say it is fucked up, is what that is. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's
That's a bad dream, right?
it
That's
is.
not the right dream, right?
That's not the right dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my point in addition to that was that to look like you, to play 7 sports and to still be sparkly and been able to run and jump on the beach. I mean, I still teach martial arts. I still paddleboard, I kayak, I do all that stuff. I do something every single day,
Yeah.
and I will do something every single day until I'm off the planet.
That's accountability.
And that message, we've changed that message by saying to people, 5 minutes a day, 3 days a week, you're going to be ripped, you know, and it's the industry doing that. And we tell them also, you're going to arrive at this place like you're done. No, you're not done. You're never done. When you buy a car, they say, "Yep, one oil change. That's it, Sue. You're gonna have this car for 100,000 miles. At 4,000 miles, you can change the oil. That's it." No, they're gonna tell you up front, "Hey, girlfriend, you're gonna bring this car back every 4,000 miles until you trade it or sell it." And you go, "Okay, okay." You got to rotate your tires. Okay, you got to change your air filter. Okay, like in that world, it's totally cool to be honest about the the labor intensivity of this vehicle. But we in the industry are not honest with people, and that's where I think AI doesn't work. That's where a human being has to have a bit of power to say to somebody, hey, when I pivoted from pro athletes to kids, I'd sit down with their parents and they'd be like, "Yeah, Johnny's going to play Division 1 something or whatever." And I'm like, boy, I don't think so. Not based on what I just did an assessment. We're doing a strategy session. I think maybe, but you have to understand if you think your kid is going to come in here 2 days a week and end up playing football at Notre Dame, you're high. Now I wouldn't say that, but
Yeah, yeah, man.
no, but
You
I'd
know,
be like, you gotta
yeah.
understand, we're talking about a 6-day-a-week commitment for the next 3 years. And the parents would go like, "What?" I go, "Yeah, that's what's up." And if and there's a college for every single kid. Every year that I train young athletes, some kid will come in and be like, "Hey, Jimbo, I just got a scholarship," and they'll name a school I've never heard of. And he's got this big smile on his face, or she's got a smile on her face, whatever. And I'm so happy for him. And it's Division 2 or Division 3 or NAIA or whatever. And that's all they wanted was to go to college and play some sports and have some fun. And that's fantastic. That person that wants to be at the top of the food chain, can you hear that? It's like thunder and lightning. Um, it's hard work. Now, I can say that to a young athlete, but when I have somebody come in who's 55 years old and banged up and just had a shoulder replacement and a reverse hip and a bunch of other stuff, and they're like, "Can you put me on a program for 6 weeks so I can get back in the game?" I'm like,
6 weeks.
no,
No, I can't
no,
actually.
no. It's
That's
going to take me. It's going to take me 6 weeks just to figure you out. It's going to take me 6 weeks to get you in the habit of drinking water. It's going to take me another 6 weeks to get you hydrating yourself properly. It's going to take me another 6 weeks to get a little bendiness in this whole body of yours. Like we're looking at an annual program, and if you're not willing to work out with me for the next year, it's probably I'm not a good fit for you.
but
And
Jim, I mean, I think, I've been in the fitness industry since I'm 16 years old. I mean, my very first legitimate job was as a group exercise instructor with
really,
Jazzercise, right? I was like 16 years old and like the lady didn't show up. And so I was like suddenly teaching a class and loving it. And just always been in the gym. And I think you're right. There is this mentality now where long ago people would go into dance studios, fitness studios to work out. And there was a culture. It was a culture. I love going to the gym. There's something about gym energy that just gets me pumped
right?
up. I like seeing the same faces, saying hello,
Yeah,
like you're kind of part of the tribe. And group exercise also is like, you're seeing the people, there's this energy
yeah.
that you cannot do on a phone in your house. It just is not
It's
the
not the same.
same
It's
energy.
not the same.
But what do you see? Because you said something that really hits me, and I believe it too, is that there's there's so many mixed messages in fitness. You want to lose weight, don't do cardio. You want to lose weight, do cardio. You want to lean down, lift weights. If you want to really get toned, don't lift weights, do Pilates. You're like so freaking confused. And there's so many experts and gurus and the social media influencers who are all knowing beings, and people can learn how to become a personal trainer online. Okay, what Where are we right now in fitness, do you think? And where do you think the industry is going because of technology, because the world is so digital? Do you think that fitness is going to survive?
Oh, I think it's growing. It seems like the energy is really good. I think you're going to see, like I've always seen in certain businesses, people get sorted out. You know, when I owned my first gym, I had the first Gold's Gym in New England, and we
Yeah,
had a contract. Uh, I was a provider
yeah,
for digital DEC, right? And I remember during after the mass miracle, when the economy changed, like it changes, I remember these digital guys were in the gym at like 2 in the afternoon. I was like, "What are you doing here, man? We don't have any projects right now, so I'm gonna work out." I was like, "Well, how can they afford to pay you? Digital has never laid anyone off." And I was like, "Okay." And then a month later, all of a sudden, it's like digital lays off 6,000 employees. And these people walked into the gym now. It affected me because I had 3 gyms and I was a contractor with them. So I was getting all these employees were coming in and the digital was paying for them. And I lost like $20,000 a month in a month. Like
a lot of money.
it
Yeah,
just went away
yeah,
because by the end of 2 or 3 months, digital had laid off 20,000 people. Wang Computers closed.
right.
So I think you're going to continue to see those swings. Right now, what we're seeing is we're seeing the big are eating people. You know, when I was with Wellbridge, Lifetime came in and bought, I don't know how many of our facilities, right? Because we had these big, beautiful facilities. Lifetime ate up like 20 of them or something. So, like, big places like Lifetime who have high level of service, I think a good level of service, good education with their trainers, ridiculous facilities, like they're country clubs basically,
Yeah.
but they charge a premium. They charge a good amount of money. And so they are attracting that group. Then you have the lower group, which would be like Planet Fitness, where they're saying, it's $20 a month, all you can eat. It's a buffet of stuff. The difference is I don't see people getting fit. I was a member of Planet Fitness in Wilmington when I lived there because Zach and I opened a gym and I wanted to go to Lifetime so I could work out and not have somebody, go to Planet Fitness. Nobody bothered me. And there's no one getting in shape there. No one.
But that's been always. I mean, I again, I was teaching, 28 fitness classes a week, watching these people come in and out, in and
Right.
out, in and out, taking class after class. Their bodies never changed. They never got any leaner. They had never looked any better. If anything, they kind of looked worse because they were doing too
Too much.
much. And I
Yeah.
think that that's still today a problem. But also, I I'm an educator, right? I have certifications that I have been training, like some like 3,500 instructors around the world now, which is like mind blowing to me.
Wow.
But I think our industry is not getting as educated. Like people will say, I don't need a certification. I can just learn it myself and just do
Yeah.
it myself. And I think that that's a big thing. The models are changing. I remember when IDEA was like, really, IDEA World was a
Yeah.
world event and it was huge and it was
Yeah.
buzzing with energy. And then it's like now it's a third of the size. And the model is completely changed where they used to actually pay educators to come in and teach. Now you got to have a booth and spend 8 to 10 grand just to
Right.
show up. You got to pay to play. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just not interested. I don't need to do that because
Yeah.
actually that's an expense for me. It doesn't actually help me.
Yeah. I don't, that's a, first off, is a terrific question. And I'm not sure. I'm on the I'm on the edges now. Like I do more consulting work than I only have a couple clients that I work with. And on the physical side, like helping people work out. Like I don't I we sold our gym last year. That was my 13th. I don't think there will be a 14th. Um, I like to vacation and paddleboard too much. So I don't see myself. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning, reading for 2 hours, like watching podcasts. So I don't have to do that. I don't have to go and do a class anymore. Um, but I don't have a good answer for you. I see certain brands do certain things. I walked into a row house in Highlands Ranch a couple years ago. and I knew instantly they were not gonna survive. I could tell the lady who had bought the franchise had no history in the fitness industry. She was extremely successful, woman in her 50s that had been in the high tech industry, was very she'd done very well financially. So she opened up this beautiful place. And I went in there and it was impressive. It was really impressive. And then I thought, is someone really going to get on a rower 3 or 4 days a week? Like at a certain point, they're just going to be like, man, there's got to be more to life than just, you know,
Right.
we've seen Orange Theory do better because they mixed a few things in there. They did some rowing and they did some TRX and they did some treadmill. They made it a little bit more fun and they've done well. They've continued to scale. But some of these standalone things, it is hard to scale. When you reach your hand through a market, you're going to pull out your Pilates people, you're going to pull out your yoga people, you're going to pull out your whatever people, your CrossFitters, whatever. But all of those are finite. And I think so you're gonna see, like we had, our facility in Wilmington was 2,500 square feet,
Mhm.
and it was very, very high touch, a little bit more money than the market, and it was different. It was a very high touch model. I think you're gonna see that continue, and I think you're gonna see the big guys continue. I think everybody in the middle is gonna get caught.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think so too.
you're just gonna it's just gonna be really, really challenging. You're gonna have your ultra nice facilities like an Equinox or a Lifetime.
Yeah, God, I
I
hope
think you're
Equinox comes to Naples, Florida. Please, Equinox, come to Naples, Florida.
yeah, yeah, I think that's what you're gonna see. But I don't know. I
Yeah.
know, I see people still raising tons of money, and I see, hedge funds still throwing millions at the fitness business. So they know something, or else they think they know something. They're buying up a lot of product. There's
Yeah. But with this new book that you've got and your coaching, you do a lot of mentorship.
yep,
Do you have a course that you're giving that people can really get involved so that they're in a group? Is it one-on-one? How does your
yeah,
education work?
I appreciate that. Yeah, so I've done a couple small masterminds and I limit them to 8 people, Sue, because that's my nature. Um, there are people calling things masterminds that have 50, 100, 200 people in them. That's to me, that's not a mastermind. That's a seminar. And seminars are great, but I like the networking part of it. It's 8 weeks long. We go once a week for 8 weeks, and I pair people up during that time. So, like, for instance, if you were in one, you would be with somebody this week and somebody else next week. There's an accountability piece, and I can put 8 people on a Zoom call, and I can see everybody. And I mean, when I went to Exeter Academy, Phillips Exeter Academy, and we sat around a table,
Yeah,
and it was
that's how
brutal.
that's how our masterminds when I was younger and I did masterminding when I was in my
Yeah,
20s. You went to a group and you sat there together.
yeah,
You were not the smartest person, at least my experience was I was not even remotely the smartest person in the room. And I learned a whole bunch because these were people who were 20 years older than me, trying to start a company at
yeah,
40, and I was young and I really should have listened to my dad when I went to college and I thought I was going to be a filmmaker and he said you need to have a real job and take business classes. I was like, I'm not going to own a business. And he goes, are you kidding? You're so outspoken, nobody's going to hire you. I
yeah.
was like, oh shit. And he's true. I mean, I've owned my own company for 25 years. I've managed to run it with no business knowledge, but I think that is what it takes is sometimes having people there asking you questions, poking holes in your ideas, and not
Yeah.
popping a bubble in the dream, but making you realize that it might be a little bit of a pipe dream and you got to like put yourself to earth a little bit and ground yourself in the great that you have this idea, but what are your steps to get there, right? And
Well,
I
the other thing was the last one we did, I had a guy who just had left the professional baseball team. He had an injury and he was kind of thinking about what he wanted to do. And his dream got bigger over the 8 weeks because of the group.
Mm,
Because people were like, dude, you're onto something. Like, this is a thing. And he's like, he thought it was just gonna be him. And they're like, no, you need to build a business, go raise some money. This is cool. Like, this is really cool. And it wasn't me. I mean, I'm the administrator of it and I'm motivating people. And I try to stay out of the way because some of the if you've ever been to like a brainstorming session,
mhm.
the best thing you can do at a brainstorming session, one of the companies I owned, we put whiteboard all the way around the room. And so we had a big conference table. We bring everybody in, and we had an agreement that no one could engage anybody about their ideas until everybody had spoken. So you go up, like Sue Hitzman's on the board, and you'd have your spot, and you go like, I think we should do this. No one could say anything.
Mhm.
Then I would go, well, I think we should do this. No one could say anything. And so I was working for a company, and one of my cohorts would engage people in the middle of a brainstorming session. And I felt like, and we were peer to each other in the board of directors, so I couldn't really put them in timeout. But I always was like, shush, somebody's going to say something cool, and you're going to stop them because it takes a lot to get people to talk, to feel confident. You have to create that environment. So I try to create that environment where people just let it breathe. Like, what are you thinking? And they're like, well, I think I might want to do this thing. Cool. Well, let's talk about that. And then we give homework. So every week people have homework based on the paperwork. And so they've got to go call people. They've got to reach out to people. And so everybody understands what their job is. And then they come back, and the first half of the mastermind hour is reporting. Like, okay, Sue,
Would
what,
you
did you go talk to these people? Yeah, I talked to this guy, this guy, this guy. I mean, we had a couple people by the end, they're like, I'm not doing what I thought I was going to do. Now, you can look at that as a negative. I should have got talked out of some things that I wanted to do. I
Yeah. I mean, it really is, again, like sometimes it's a great idea. Now what? And it's only when you actually put it out there and you talk to people where you realize that it's not possible. But also, again, I mean, I'm a creator of a brand. I didn't set out to make a brand, but somehow it came to be. And I can't tell you how many times when I was like, there is a gap in the fitness industry for restorative recovery based care.
Yep.
And I got told, because that's not part of fitness. And I'm like, it is. It is a part of it. It
Well,
should.
you were a little early, and they
I'm a
say,
visionary. I'm a pioneer. I know. But
yeah,
then
you can
now
tell by the
everybody,
arrow sticking out of them, right? So
yeah,
you
yeah,
were a
but
little early
everybody's
to the
saying it's
party.
recovery. It's
Yeah,
it's
you
all
were.
recovery now.
Yeah, but you know what? You stuck with it, Sue, and that's a big part of it. You can't. You want to be at the fight. You got to stay in the fight. Like you stayed in the fight.
Yeah, but that's it. Is there's a crossroad. Like sometimes it's good to stay in the game, and then sometimes people will talk you out of it. So I think that there is a little bit of the passion and the fire that you really have to have, that even when you're told no, that you're like, they're just not seeing the vision. But that means that I'm not delivering it in a way that makes it compelling enough. And that's what I thought when I was younger, when I was coming up with these ideas. I said, I'm just not explaining it with the
Right.
reason behind it that I understand in my mind. And then that's when I started putting pen to paper, and then just started writing it down. And just like how
Right.
you said at the beginning. So Jim, because we're coming toward the end of our time together, how can somebody find out about your coaching and this mentorship program that you have launched? I want people to know about it if they want to join in.
That's great. So findingthegame.com. If they go to the website, yeah. So the book is available on Amazon, but the process, like if somebody buys the book, they come to the website and they just fill out some stuff, and we push all the paperwork to them. So that's one. Number two is a mastermind. And the mastermind schedule is online. They can go there, they go on PayPal, they can pay for it. They're all starting on the 13th, I think Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever that week is. I think it's the second week of May. We have four starting. So one on Tuesday, two on Wednesday. I've tried to schedule them at different hours so people can jump in. You have to commit to one, but so that's all getting started right now. The other part is I still do one-on-one stuff. So just like the email that you got, I got two one-on-one clients just this week. People are like, I don't want to do the mastermind, which is less expensive, obviously, than one-on-one stuff. But some people going through some career changes, they're like, I want you to life coach me, because I've gone through the processes. I've become a certified life coach out of need because I was working with so many guys when we would do financial stuff. And then I got my 6 and 63 investment licenses, and I've been growing this process so that I can have intellectual discussion about their money and how they should be dealing with it. And also, the life coaching piece, so that I've learned to move back a little bit because I found out all those years actually wasn't coaching. I was consulting. When I was getting a guy ready for the combine, I was actually a consultant. I wasn't a coach. A coach basically says, "Well, what do you think, Sue?" Right? Like draws out of you. It's like when I ask people, I'm like, and I know, for instance, like I drank too much in college. If somebody said to me, "Why didn't you make it in the NFL?" It's like, well, I probably drank too much. I probably had too much fun. And if I had to do it again, I wouldn't have been out there partying all the time. I would have been a world class athlete. So most people know when you ask most people, like, why did you not have success in this thing? Most people can tell you. And
Yeah.
so I try to draw that out with people. So I am actually a coach now, whereas all those years I was really a consultant. I
Yeah.
knew how to make a guy faster. That's not necessarily a coach. That's a mechanic. I would be like, yeah, your hand movements are, Wiki gets into it. Dave's got all the, his arm movements and different things he does. And so it's like he's a consultant. He's not a coach. He goes in there and goes, no, you're moving like a kook, and I'm going to help you fix that. And so now I believe I finally have arrived at the coaching piece where I can say, well, I think you should try this thing. You should take this paperwork. You should call these people, get back to me and let me know how it goes. And people build it themselves. I tell you, and I know we got to go, but I'm having probably more fun than I've had in my whole career because I'm finally really coming alongside people as opposed to being here, right?
Top of
It's
yeah.
just it's really fun. It's really fun.
You
So,
know,
you know
but
what? First
yeah,
off, thank you so much for inviting me to this. I'm so
sure.
thankful. Yeah.
I mean, you got 40 years of experience behind you. I've watched you consult and coach other professionals in the fitness industry. You are so loved and recognized, and people are, reach to you. People talk about you. So I mean, like you've always just done a great job
Thank you.
in
Thanks.
fitness. And I think that's just awesome. And so, okay, so I ask everybody who comes to Anatomical Gangster the same final question. So here's my question to you, Jim.
Yeah.
If you could tell somebody a life lesson, something that you've learned in your lifetime that completely transformed how you were getting through a hard time, maybe it was you were struggling, and it completely changed your perspective of your life. And if somebody who was going through that same instance heard your advice, it could maybe change their life, what would it be?
Uh Learn to think and not react to things when they happen. You and I are a member of a stupid club, right? It's like when things happen, when bad things happen to you, your first natural tendency, whether it's good or bad, like you can win the lottery and you can overreact. Um, I got good advice from a good friend of mine, a financial investment guy up in San Francisco. I was training his kid, and when I lost Sherry, I was like, what advice do you have for me? And he said, don't do anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, just don't do anything. Like, just do. And I literally, a couple of days later, went back and started training young athletes again. And as an aside to that, the young athletes have been warmer to me over the last 5 years than maybe some of my friends. They've always checked in on me. How you doing? Whatever. But it was like, okay, don't react. Think. Like, stop. Take. And I think that is on the highs. That's on the lows. Before you sign something, in the book, I said that, I this one guy was gonna, he's got released by the Buffalo Bills and he was gonna get involved in my business. And his father-in-law, his mentor, said that comment. He said, if it's a good idea today, it's a good idea next year or next month or whatever. Let it breathe. Let it breathe for a day. Let it breathe for a week. So my advice to people is when something happens to you, just let it breathe. Think, don't do anything. Don't hit send, right?
That's a
Don't
big,
hit
it's
send.
a big message. It's a big message. Loss will change you for sure, and it can put you in a hole. But I think if you're right, whether it's loss or anger or a breakup or whatever, don't react. Don't start texting when you're
Yeah.
drunk. Don't do drunk texting. Don't like
Go
start
for
writing
a walk.
Go for a walk, exactly. It really is, and I think you said it at the beginning. Slow down, people. Slow down it when you feel the heat, just slow down for a minute. Don't run.
Just
Stand
pump the
still,
brakes.
look around and find choices because if you push too fast, you lose your choice, and I think
Well,
that's
right before we started this, I'm at a friend's house and her cat ran in and just destroyed my desk. And like 2 minutes before I came online. And then UPS guy comes up and the dog's barking. Then the thunderstorm starts. And I literally started laughing. I just thought, yeah, of course.
that's
You
probably
know,
Sherry just saying hello, really, is what it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
That's all.
of course. I told Zach when he was at rescue swimmer school, he called me up and he's like, Dad, I'm on the side of the pool and this guy's peeing on me and whatever. And I said, of course he is. And he's like, what do you mean, of course? I go, his job is to make you quit. So from now on, when they say stuff to you, when they do stuff to you, when the guy sits on your back when you're doing push-ups or he pees on you when you're in the pool, just say in your back of your head, of course. So when the cat runs across and stuff goes everywhere, I just go, of course.
Of course.
That's what cats do. Cats destroy stuff right before you go on a podcast.
Yes, exactly. Don't be surprised when people do that, things. And I always think to myself, and this has been a great lesson that I've learned from my mom, is that you can't change another person. You can only change how you react to what they do.
Perfect. I
That's
hope your
beautiful.
mom's doing better.
Yeah, yeah, we're working hard trying to get that leg to go, but yeah, it's pretty tough when
All
you
right.
have bad
Well,
surgery.
God
But
bless you, Sue. Thank you so much. Thank
totally,
you.
Jim. Thank you so much for coming on Anatomical Gangster. For all of you guys
Next
listening.
time I'm in Naples, don't avoid me.
I know exactly. I totally come down and visit again. And again, for
I
those of you
will.
guys listening to Anatomical Gangster today, make sure that you subscribe, share this one with a friend. And of course, if you're looking for some good coaching, I cannot think of a greater person to recommend than Big
Thank
Jim
you.
here. Thank
God
you
bless
so
you, buddy.
much. And we'll see you all soon.
See ya.